So this is the most excited I've been about putting something on a test bench in quite some time. We've got our whole room water cooling setup video series and, well, just doing it, building 5 systems that are all running on the same water cooling loop and then spitting the heat out of the house sort of project coming up. But of course there's some preparation that needs to be done. So I always preach to people that especially if you're going to be liquid cooling a rig, you should really be building it air cooled outside of a case first to make sure that everything's working before you go and put a bunch of work into it. So this is the first one that I'll be testing out. With the purchase of a qualifying Intel processor, SSD, or NUC, you could instantly win an Intel gaming jersey and be entered in the draw for the ultimate system. Click now to learn more. So here it is. Here's the setup that my son is helping me with. Are you going to build that one? Okay, good job. You work on that. All right, well, I show everyone the hardware that we are going to be putting into these rigs. Now, this one is the one that I'm really excited about because it's not quite the same as the others. They're all getting Kingston 240 gig SSDs for the boot drives because most of our storage is going to be on the NAS. They're all getting Cooler Master V Series 750 watt power supplies. So they're modular power supplies, they're E+ gold, all that good stuff. We're not overdoing it on the wattage because there isn't really a benefit to that. They're all getting NVIDIA GTX Titan Black Edition cards. Zoom out a little bit, taking all of its glory. And they're all running on ASUS X79 Deluxe motherboards. ASUS really does a great job of those high-end boards, and we really like this particular one quite a lot. But while most of them will be running Core i7s and then 32 gigs of DDR3 memory, this one will be running, yes, what's that? Okay, it might only say 2.7 gigahertz on the spreader there, but that's a pretty good 2.7 gigahertz because it's to all 12 of its cores and 24 threads. This is going to be a Xeon-based workstation as opposed to a Core i7-based one, and along with that Xeon, we've got 64 gigs of Kingston DDR3 because instead of 32 gigs like the other workstations, this one is getting double the memory because Edzel is a memory hog and needs pretty much as much RAM as I can throw at him. That's also why he's getting the 12-core Xeon, because for certain workloads, like say for example 3D rendering, you're going to get more benefit from more cores than you will from faster cores. So unfortunately, we can't make use of ECC memory, which would allow us to get higher capacities like 128 gigs on one board using 16 gig DIMMs, but 8 gig DIMMs for a total of 64 gigs hopefully will be enough for him for the time being. Now, one thing I've asked Kingston for is some higher speed memory for that rig, because again, with the other ones, it doesn't matter that much. So we'll see if they come through and send us some 1866 stuff, but for now, we're gonna do the pre-build and validation and get going on this. So the build process for this rig isn't really anything exceptional. I mean, it's motherboard, CPU, RAM, it's all that stuff. It's just the hardware that we're using that's pretty darn cool. So as always, it starts with the board. I did notice the CPU was a little bit different. It's actually wider than most LGA 2011 CPUs. Then putting in all that RAM was one of those chores that you have to kind of enjoy a little bit. There's something satisfying about putting 64 gigs of RAM into a system, stick by stick by stick by stick. After that, it's time to put some thermal compound on the CPU. Then we're going to get our power supply in place, get that plugged into the motherboard. Something to note, guys, I put the power supply in fan side down. That would suffocate it. That's bad. Make sure fan side is up. Ignore the B-roll. I did fix that before I actually turned the system on. After that, we're going to go ahead and get the water cooling installed. So you put in the 4 posts, put the block over top of the thermal compound we already applied. We're using a dual radiator liquid cooling system, even though when this is done, it'll actually be hooked up to something much cooler and much more extreme. We're plugging our SSD, and then the cherry on top is the GTX Titan Black Edition. So that's it, guys. It's done. This is part of the process. We're building something outside of the box to make sure that everything is running okay. And this is it. Moment of truth time. So let's go ahead and flip the switch on the power supply. And there we go. Hopefully everything works. All the action's happening here until the screen illuminates. So as long as that, whoop, okay, keep doing things. Yeah, there we go, okay. So let's see. If all went well, we should see something about 12 cores and 64 gigs of RAM on the screen at some point here. There we go. Something, 2700 megahertz, okay. 65, I guess they round, gigs of RAM. CPU fan error, all right. Everything is detected. Let's head into the BIOS and do some rudimentary tuning. So the first thing that you're always gonna wanna do is head over to advanced mode, because advanced mode's for cool kids, and then change it so that it boots into advanced mode every time. And now, normally, a normal person's reaction to a rig like this might be, wow, I've never touched a CPU that's worth $2,500. I better be extremely careful with it, but my reaction's a little bit different. So we're gonna go with, can we overclock it a little bit? Now, Xeons are not overclockable the same way that Core i7s are on this platform, where you just turn up the multiplier and it's off to the races. In fact, I'll show you guys, if we try to change the multiplier to anything higher than 27, it just automatically changes to 27. So we're not going to be able to use the multiplier to overclock. Now, on modern Intel platforms, it's multiplier times base clock equals the overall frequency. And you can overclock base clock, but not much. On early X79 boards, you were lucky to get maybe 105 megahertz. So we're gonna see if we can get even 105 megahertz, because that'll be a 5% overclock on 12 cores. So I'm gonna show you guys what we're gonna try. So first of all, we changed to manual, oopsie daisies. Change to manual, and we're gonna key in 105 here. Then for the ratio, we want auto. For the DRAM frequency, normally we would leave it at 1600 megahertz because this is 1600 megahertz RAM, but in this case, I'm not really a huge fan of overclocking memory if you don't have to. I mean, we can play around with it later, but first we want to make sure our CPU is stable. So we're going to pick something that is going to give us a frequency that is lower than 1600 megahertz so that we know that memory is not holding us back here. Extreme overvoltage. We're not going to overvolt the CPU as much as I believe in, trying to squeeze a little bit more performance out of a chip like this. It's a 12-core chip. We're not going to go and just throw more volts at it. The last thing we want is to damage the thing. So we're going to be going for whatever we can get without overvolting it and potentially reducing the lifespan. This is a work machine, not like a gaming rig. So we can't afford any instability. So these are not XMP memory modules, so we're gonna key in our voltage manually, and you know what, I'm not gonna bore you guys with the tediousness of keying in all that other stuff manually. So let's just go ahead and find the last thing I need. Where are you? CPU configuration. The last thing I want is to make sure that turbo boost is on. It might be somewhere in here. CPU performance settings, here we go. Yeah, so turbo mode needs to be enabled. So now what we've effectively done by leaving the core ratio at auto and increasing our base clock is we've made it so that our CPU will continue to turbo all the way up to 3.5 gigahertz plus 5% in a single threaded application. And while it would normally turbo to 3 gigahertz with all 12 cores, we're gonna get 3150 megahertz. So a 5% improvement. Let's see how it goes. All right, so here we are at the desktop. It's time to validate that the settings that we put in actually took, because again, this is not normal hardware, so, who knows? Well, look at that. Okay, we're turboing to 3.5 something gigahertz, there you go, normally, which means, there it is. We're running at 105 megahertz base clock. So yes, we have overclocked the CPU. So the tools we're going to use to stress test it are IDA64, and we're going to just start a stress test. And assuming it doesn't crash pretty much immediately, we're going to start creeping up that base clock and see if we can get a little bit higher, because I think 105 is going to be pretty easy. We're not really asking it for much, so we're gonna push it and see how much further we can get it. One thing I do want to know before we proceed, though, is what are temperatures like? Very comfortable. Sitting at around 55 degrees. That's without the water heating up, but that won't matter when we're running on a whole room liquid cooling setup now, will it? So I'm going to show you guys, once we see that it sort of passes for a couple seconds here, how we can avoid rebooting into Windows every time, or rebooting into the UEFI BIOS every time in order to test new things. So we're going to go into the TPU tab of AI Suite, which is not my favorite piece of software, but we're just kind of using it to save some time here. Boop, boop, boop. Yeah, I know, AI Sweet, you're trying real hard. Okay, and then we can actually change base clock on the fly, setting increment by increment. Then we just apply it. Do you want to load it? Yes. So we can change all of this stuff on the fly, run a new stability test, and keep going until it doesn't go anymore. So it ended up pushing a lot further than I expected, and I had to bring it into the office to continue testing. I ran out of time because I kept expecting at every stage, one more B clock, no, it passes. So this is what we ended up with. Any further than this, and we can't push it any further. It'll just lock up as soon as we try to run a stress test. But here it is, 113 megahertz base clock. That gives us 3.39 gigahertz with 12 cores running. Utterly unfreaking believable. So this is going to be one heck of a high performance workstation, and it is 100% rock solid at this setting. No problems whatsoever. Very, very exciting. So stay tuned, guys, because this is just one of the machines for our 5-system, multi-system, room-wide liquid cooling setup that we're going to be doing soon. It is the most exciting one with 64 gigs of RAM as well as that 12-core CPU, but the other ones will be cool too. Speaking of all them cores or something, the core of your browsing time should be spent on Hulu Plus. Ah, there you go. I made a segue. It's a simple, reliable video streaming service for your PC, smartphone, TV, tablet, Roku, pretty much any device you would want. It's got a wide variety of TV shows, Criterion movies, kids shows, and anime, and Hulu Plus has the quantity and variety to suit a wide variety of viewing needs. They even produce some original shows like Quick Draw, a fully improvised comedy set in the Wild West. Season 1 was a huge hit, and Season 2 is available now. Hulu Plus also helps out all of you morning people who probably watch this show out there by having current season episodes of late night TV shows like Saturday Night Live, Jimmy Kimmel Live, and The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. So you can watch them at 5 a.m. or whatever time you get up in the morning with a cup of coffee and a bright smile on your face anyway. So guys, if you're wondering how you can get the most entertainment out of $7.99 per month, then give it a try, Hulu Plus. But of course, we're not going to ask you to buy something before you try it, so check out the link in the video description, huluplus.com/Linus, to get a 2-week free trial of their service instead of a 1-week free trial, which is what you normally get. So go check that out. Guys, thank you for watching. Like this video if you liked it. Dislike it if you disliked it. Leave a comment letting us know what you thought of it. If you want to see more vlogs like this, like extreme overclocking. I don't know how extreme it is, but it's definitely overclocking. That's all good stuff. Also, check out the link in the video description to support us. You can give us a monthly contribution. You can buy a cool t-shirt like this one, or you can just change your Amazon bookmark to one with our affiliate codes. So we get a small kickback whenever you buy Tic Tacs or whatever it is you buy on Amazon. Thanks again for watching, and as always, don't forget to subscribe.